Hello, my name is Dr. Brian Sheen, and it is a pleasure to be here with you today to share with you my research over the past year in an area that I know concerns each of us. And for the International Society of Ethical Psychology and Psychiatry, in this special conference on the medicalization of current events, COVID-19, racism, and public policy, I want to share with you this in-depth research that I have done by having the opportunity to experience this COVID pandemic, lockdown, quarantine in both Lima, Peru, and here now in the United States. And there's some interesting differences to look at on that we need to understand, because this is a unique challenge for avoiding massive anxiety and depression in our new world. And there's no question that this is unprecedented. And I would agree with what was written in WebMD Health News when Jonathan Portes, a California psychologist, called this a collective state of trauma. I think that gets a lot closer to understanding what is really the concern we must have, and that is to realize that this is universal, something that every country has had to deal with, even though some have dealt with this in far better ways than we have, as we can easily see from the statistics. But we know that this unprecedented shift will be remembered and will influence our lives, our emotions, our interactions, our policies, our economy for many years to come. And so it's interesting that this is the year of 2020, because this 2020 vision has definitely become severely nearsighted. The optics of every human being now requires a new lens to fit to their eye, that inner eye, that third eye, if they're to safely function in the world. It is vital that we become accustomed to our new vision prescription to focus on what will be a challenging recovery process from this pandemic trauma. One that we have to be very careful of, that will not be then used as a marketing platform to not only have individuals lose their personal independence for making choices health-wise, but to become a marketing platform for those manufacturers of the vaccine and of the medications that are being sent to so many people these days as a solution to deal with their troubles. And in working with hundreds of people worldwide since the start of the year, it's clear we've all been stigmatized by this pandemic, and we really can't see things clearly. Anxiety and depression, which is natural in times of fear, of mounting deaths, of all of the economic consequences that have been happening and will be happening, is rewiring our brains and epigenetically predisposing us through the reduction and weakening of our immune system. Where before maybe we look to the future as if looking at the Snellen eye chart, and we see that big E on the top of the chart, which everyone could usually easily discern. Well, now it's blurry. Even line 2 with the F and the P and the T, O, and Z on line 3, they're obscured because there's so much uncertainty, there's so much fear, that what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? What will be this world and the different demands that our governments then make on us, the different profit-making schemes that already flood the internet. And we need to have a new vision. And I think by looking at our situation as a condition I call chronic pandemic stress disorder, CPSD, we begin to understand that in this emotionally, mentally, physically, economically challenging times, is that we need to find another way and make some important changes in our lives, in our expectations, so that we develop a new vision, so that we utilize the power of the mind, of visualization, so we activate that part of our brains, that reticular activating system, by placing in a new vision. Because as Helen Keller says, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight, but no vision. And it is my goal with this presentation is to shed a new light on what is happening and to help provide a new clear vision of a path that we can utilize this experience, this universal experience, so as to bring us closer together, to shift us and learn how to see through a third eye, an eye of intuitiveness and connection to the greater whole, to allow ourselves to develop improved systems for health and wellness, and realize inside of our bodies, we have all of the medications we need if we learn how to access the prescriptions that are available to us to activate our endocrine system, to activate all the neurotransmitters in our body, to develop and create new neural networks in our brain, all three of our brains, the brain in our head, our cerebral brain, our heart brain, and our enteric brain, and bring that connection all together so that we then become immersed in the beauty of the body and its intelligence, of the universe, and the way that we can make direct shifts to support our health and our wellness, to enhance our immunity, and perhaps even have this wild new concept of being able to vaccinate yourself by having the knowledge, the confidence, and the faith that you have taken care of your body, your mind, your relationships to be strong, to be vital, and not to have to be subject to the fearful tones that spread throughout the media. And whether it's on television or whether it's on YouTube or wherever it might be, there is no question that we are surrounded by forces that have other agendas. And those agendas can be profit agendas for developing more drugs externally and becoming a marketing platform for these pharmaceutical companies, for the medical industry, for the hospital industry. And this is one of the great concerns that I have, which I believe when we get this vision of chronic pandemic stress disorder, CPSD, and understand we are not helpless to do something about it. We all have the power to make new decisions to unplug us from the negativity that is weakening our immune system and making us more susceptible towards not only just COVID-19, but any disease, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, because a weakened immune system not only causes these particular diseases, but has so many other autoimmune diseases, mental limitations and challenges of unhappiness, of too much stress, of being overwhelmed. So we want to look at that with a new light and a new vision today. And I hope that you will find this valuable and be able to spread this knowledge and use it, because really it's all about understanding what I call knowing your IDT score. What is your IDT score? Because that will let you know exactly where you stand amidst all of these current events. Because even if these current events are going to be changing because of a vaccination, I promise you, there's something around the corner, and we're going to need to do something about it again and again, because the idea of these pandemics, and with the traveling that occurs so quick and so easy once things get back to normal, is something we need to be prepared for. And so the IDT score is vital. It stands for your immune disease tolerance levels. Do you know where you stand? We know that the number one tragedies of death that have occurred to any segment of the population has been the elder population. And that population, which is 60 and above, begins to have marketed huge increases in the number of deaths percentage-wise, just like those at very young ages have the reverse, having the stronger immune systems. And we have to ask ourselves, what is it that's happening with those people 60 and above? And when you understand that we've been creating the problem, when you realize that people 65 and above in the United States on the average take 17 different medications each day. That's an average. We are already weakening the immune system, the nervous system, every part of our body by giving it all of these different messages artificially through medications that may seem to target one part of the brain or of the nervous system, but unfortunately, this gets distributed throughout the system and can create atrophy in so many different areas. Many of these medications destroy probably what I believe to be one of the most important parts of the IDT score, and that is making sure you have a strong microbiome. So understanding your health, your level of immunity, will then begin to give you an idea of how much challenge do I have to either A, really work hard now to improve my immunity levels. Now, again, you probably have some hint in your life because your body is a feedback mechanism and is constantly telling you how you feel. And if you're healthy and you're fit and you're strong, you know you must be doing something good. However, if you're overweight or obese, if you're suffering some type of mental imbalances where you find yourself being sad or anxious or so uncertain, you're not able to think straight, you're not able to focus. Well, this tells you that the stress levels in your life and the way that you're dealing with it needs to be brought back into balance, and new strategies need to be implemented. And one of them, and I think one of the most important, is to make sure that your microbiome is functioning strongly, that you're feeding it well with prebiotics and probiotics, because that part of our system is greater in its influence on our human existence than anything else. Because our cells, which they estimate today to be about 37 trillion cells, but there's estimates of up to 150 to 200 trillion microorganisms inside of us and on us that is in a symbiotic relationship with us and helps us maintain our immunity. Yeah. This interaction occurs. This part of us, our microbiome, is many times more influential with their DNA as it interacts with our DNA. It is intestinal. It is in our mouth. It is on our ear. It is all over us. And when we eat high levels of stress or high levels of stress-oriented foods, lots of sugar, doesn't help. Lots of artificial sweeteners, lots of canned foods. We want fresh foods. We want to feed our microbiome to be happy. And that's just one part of the equation to build up a strong immune system. So rate your immune system on a scale of 1 to 10 by your health. How have you been through this last year of pandemic, through the quarantines and the lockdowns? How are you doing emotionally? If you're strong and confident, well, give yourself a 9 or a 10. But if you've been worried, if you're afraid to go outside, if you won't interact, if you look at the future and you don't see a future anymore because you're just so overwhelmed economically, you've been going crazy at home with everybody locked in, how are you dealing with these things? Remember, if you are emotionally challenged, which means stress, the first thing that happens is the immune system begins to weaken and it shuts itself off to deal with the threat. We're all aware of that. But many of us don't have the tools in order to be able to embody confidence, to deal with these uncertainties, to have the faith of a vision of the future that one says, I'm excited what comes next. I've utilized this space. And with the clients that I've worked with, I'll tell you, it is night and day. Those who have been stuck inside and are still afraid to go outside, they will wear a mask in the house. They will wear a mask outside when they're walking and there's nobody around near them. They're in fear. And fear means immune system off. All the energy of the body now goes into a place to deal with the imagined threat. Real or imagined, it doesn't matter. When you don't feel confident to deal with it and have faith you'll get through it, your system's immune system, not only mentally and emotionally, but actually at a biological level, lessens tremendously. And it predisposes you and opens you up for all sorts of diseases. So looking at this is important. Disease tolerance, the second part of it, the DT, what is your disease tolerance level? Now, you know this because you've experienced your lifetime and you've watched people around you, and maybe you work at an office or in your community or in your family, and people come down with colds, they come down with flu, people coming down with all sorts of accidental injuries. Well, that tells you that something's off inside your system. Now, if you're getting them on a regular basis or a more than regular basis, how fast does it take you to recover? That recovery rate is important. Where if somebody gets slapped down and is in bed for 2 weeks, and someone who has the same thing just sits there and gets a day of feeling, but gets back to work and feels okay, then your disease tolerances, you can see, are greatly different. So where is your disease tolerance level? I pay very close attention to this because there's no way in this world that you're not going to walk around and be, especially today, surrounded by people who have had COVID, who have symptoms of colds and sneezes and coughs and weaknesses and fears. I mean, how are you responding? This is a vital, vital acknowledgement of you. I know for myself, I've been in now a couple of different countries. And when I was in Peru, we started traveling once the 7-month lockdown was over. And I went to many cities. I've been on planes. I've been in many different crowded areas. Now, I follow the protocols. I believe they're sensible, they're reasonable. Why not? And so I maintain that social distance. I wear a mask when I'm in public and I'm around other people, sometimes just out of courtesy for them. I am not worried about it because my immune system is very high. My disease tolerance level is very high. So when I score myself, I give myself an A. And I mean a real like Fonzie. A. How do you grade yourself? Now, if you've got some type of asthma or heart disease or being treated for cancer, right off the bat, take off a grade. If you've got more than one, take off 2 grades. If you're emotionally anxious and depressed, take off another grade. Use your common sense here of where you fit in. I will eventually put out a very specific chart that you'll be able to look at to grade yourself. But you're an intelligent person, and so are all of your clients and friends and family. Ask them, what level of disease tolerance do you think you have? What level of immunity do you think you have? Would you give yourself an A, a B, a C, or a D? And then that lets you know where you're at and what type of strategies you need to learn in order to raise your grades so you can go to the top of the class. I believe when it comes to immunity, you want to be in the top of the class. You definitely want to be passing, but who wants to be just passing? Because that means the possibility for you to come down with COVID or anything else is much higher than you would like. And this is why it's so devastating, the lockdowns in so many countries. And I know in Lima, Peru, we were locked down in the house. Only one of us was permitted out to go to the grocery store once a day. There was no activity, even though we lived across the street in a park to run around. There was no movement. There was no exercise. And one of the most important things we all need in order to keep our immune levels up is movement, exercise, activity. The body, remember, our lymphatic system, we need to pump it and clean it of its toxins. And that's only through movement. Not sitting around all day in front of television. And the hours that now individuals are watching television has skyrocketed up to 66 hours per week. Now that television might be on your flat screen TV, it might be on your computer, and many today watch that on their smartphones. But the amount of information and fixation that we get through screen interaction, fixation, and all of that electromagnetic energies and lights that come into and influence our brain. There's so many studies on this. And at the end, if you want to get a copy of my full ebook concerning chronic pandemic stress disorder with all of these statistics and studies and give you the full picture, please, I will put my email at the end and you will be able to email me that to get all of that. I don't want to make our brief presentation here getting caught into statistics and quotes. I want you to get to the feel of it, because this is about your emotions. What is that emotional level of how you're dealing with this? Because that and your immune levels side by side. Then disease tolerance really shows about long-term emotional states. And the more confident and stronger and more relaxed you are long-term, chances are you have a much higher disease tolerance level than those people around you who are stressed. Stress, remember, is what it's about. Because when we lose our confidence and we have signals from our brain, from our mind saying, I'm afraid of the future. I don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to die? Is my family going to die? Is this world going to fall apart? Is there going to be a depression? Is there going to be some worldwide event here, a resetting, some type of conspiracy that unfortunately has been fed tremendously by this administration? And all of a sudden, how will all this come together? Will the inauguration go off on an easy basis, or will that end up being some type of standoff with militia that all of a sudden want to call the election rigged? All of this plays into it, everything all at once, and not just in the United States, all over the world. Because I'll tell you, as crazy as things are politically here in the United States, the time I've spent the last couple of years in Colombia, in Peru, and Argentina, man, oh man, it's just as crazy, if not more so down there. But this is human existence. This is why it's important that we have strategies, tools, that we know how to improve our immune system. I call it creating super immunity. Super immunity is where your immune levels and your disease tolerance levels, your score is A or A plus. Mine was at an A. I dropped down to a B plus because what I found out is my lack of movement during that 7-month lockdown, and the diet that I was on, which became very bread oriented, very carb oriented, I ended up putting on 20 pounds. In other words, my immune and disease tolerance levels went down because I put on weight and my blood sugar levels went up, which means I am being predisposed to more incidents of disease, of illness, of weakness, of breakdown. And once I came back to the United States and I went in for a checkup with my doctor, and I knew I had put on some weight, but where I was staying, there wasn't a scale. I just looked at, the pants aren't fitting too good these days. How many of you out there put on the quarantine? I call it the quarantine 20. But it was a wake-up call. I said, this is not acceptable. This is a time of maximizing my immune system and my disease tolerance levels. I need to do something about it. My doctor didn't even say anything. I was surprised, but I guess in the few minutes they give you, what can you do? But we all need to be responsible. So I went and said, okay, shift, took all the bread out of my diet. No more of this beautiful bagels and baguettes and all of these wonderful rolls that I love so much and I was fed so much when I was in Lima, Peru. No more. And all the potatoes that we constantly had. And Peru has like 400 different varieties of potatoes. But let me tell you, as much as I love them, it doesn't help either our microbiome or our overall functioning of our body, because being overweight puts a greater stress on your system, on your heart. It brings those resources to deal with whatever that heavier weight you're carrying around, and literally. But in a matter of 6 weeks, I was able to reduce it by 75%, and I won't finish until it's right back to my fit level of fitness, where it is a weight, it is doing different exercises. I do lots of yoga, biking, racquetball, tennis, at least 5 or 6 days out of the week. And again, in Lima, nothing. We weren't allowed out of the house. And I would look forward to being able to cheat on that lockdown by going out with my girlfriend and walking her dog. And I said, oh, at least I get a little walk. And we'd walk around and there'd be police at different corners looking at us and saying, okay, it's all right. You know, you're just walking your dog. But for me, it was my exercise. That's all that was given to us. And this is something we have to look at. As professionals, we need to really chime in to those who are making these massive decisions for the population and saying, we need to find a way to give them movement. They need to get outside. They need to stay connected to nature, because I believe that's one of the most important things we can begin to do to restore our connection with nature, with our body, and with other people. Because this is serious. These impositions and limitations of contact, of people locking themselves away, this withdrawal is a withdrawal inside that's fear-based, that takes the blood from circulating outward and around and brings it inward. Our body system, our pH goes up. We become more acidic. Again, many different things are happening from each one of the solutions to chronic pandemic stress disorder. And the system we have in the world today, we never had before. We now have 24/7 connection to information. And with the huge increase in the number of hours that everyone is having with screens, with the news, many people out there, and I've had many clients, I've looked at them, I said, you're a junkie. He goes, what do you mean I'm a junkie? I don't shoot heroin. I said, no, you're a news junkie. That news you're shooting into yourself as a signal, and that's how epigenetics works. It sends you a signal of fear, and it sends a signal to every cell in your body, danger, danger. So your whole system goes in alert. You might get this surge of adrenaline. You might get this energy that feels good temporarily because you feel alive for a few moments. But no, it's addictive. It's unhealthy. And to do that, it has to shut down, reduce the functioning of your immune system. And so it's very important indeed, that we do everything we possibly can to enhance our immune system, to create a super immunity, and to cut that addiction to the media. And this, to me, is one of the biggest reasons why I've come up with CPSD, because this disease, this virus, isn't just COVID-19. It's fear. It's being immersed by the media, by our friends on Facebook, by all of a sudden these Instagram posts and Twitter posts and you name it, the blogs, everybody's focused on this. It's creating a scenario all around us, an environment of fear, of anxiety, of uncertainty, and that weakens our immune system. This plugging in never existed. In 1918, when we had the Spanish flu, where 50 to 100 million people worldwide died, and that's when the world had 1/3 today's population. There was no such thing. People weren't constantly kept in a state of suspensefulness, of danger, of threat because of the media. First, because you didn't have television. Second, you didn't really have much in the way of radio. And third, the media, the newspapers, which is where people got their information from, they were being censored. Because of the war, our president, President Wilson, didn't let newspapers tell it like it was, how dangerous it was. They kept saying, oh, it's nothing, it's just the flu, it's gonna pass. Oh, we almost found the answer to it and it's no really big problem. And this is why, while bodies were stacking up and people were going into parades that talk about super spreaders, these were super spreaders. Ask Philadelphia when they did a parade to raise money for the war efforts to buy bonds. There were groups of thugs that went around and they made sure newspapers complied. They made sure people didn't go and start spreading rumors about how dangerous it really was. And man, let me tell you, the Spanish flu was very different. And we have to be very thankful that the version we have is so different, because that you sometimes would get it in the morning and you'd be dead by the end of the day. It was vicious. And the people that it attacked was the healthy ones with strong immune systems. See, the approach back then had to be different. Awareness didn't exist, but people just all of a sudden had their immune systems become so overcharged, it ended up killing themselves through the immune systems, trying to react so strongly to what they were fighting. And the elderly, back in 1918, no, they were low down the totem pole on the percentages of death rates. So things have changed. But the key difference today, we're all plugged in. We've got a cell phone, our smartphone. 95% of the civilized world, of the major countries, they're plugged in to cell phones. Some as low as 90, some as high as 98%. And everybody spends all of this time looking, staying abreast, what's happening, where is it happening, and get caught with all of these videos and all of these stories of conspiracy theories, and it doesn't help. The only thing that helps is knowing what is your Idt score and doing everything you possibly can in order to maintain a high score or raise it up to become one. And that means stop shooting up all of this news and fear, learning strategies to reconnect to your environment. You can get all the updates you need probably within 2 minutes a day. You don't have to be sitting in front of the screen, reading every story, watching every video, getting yourself worked up on every Facebook post on conspiracy theories. I mean, it's just gotten wild. Your responsibility is you. And this is, I think, the message that we need to, as health professionals, share. If we are helping people with their mental, emotional health, it's up to us to get them to see, what are they doing? How are they doing it? In the science of quantum embodiment, which is really a integration of many of the alternative means of therapies for physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and relationship health. Everything from Ayurveda and quantum psychology to being using constellations and hypnosis and NLP and choice theory and just everything. How do we integrate all of these to live a strong and healthy life? And this is so, so important. When we put our concentration on that and we realize that we can learn tools to feel good, to cut off all of those injections of fear, of chaos, and realize our job is to help our clients feel good and have the tools and strategies to feel good no matter what. So there's a hurricane out there. Find the eye of the hurricane. Rest inside the eye of the hurricane. How do we get peace? Meditation is a wonderful solution to this. Learning to meditate, to breathe fully and completely, to make connection choices with others, to make sure we're connected to nature, to feel a tree, the ground, the energy that the earth shares with us, that the sun shares with us. We get so many positive signals as well as vitamins and minerals. Being in nature and walking free and breathing deeply sends a signal. I'm safe. I'm relaxed. I bring myself into balance as the stress disappears, as I learn how to bring in alignment my enteric brain with my heart brain and my cerebral brain to create alignment, to create a new vision for the future, and have faith. More than ever, this is a test of our faith. Whatever you believe, spiritually, existentially, religiously, I don't care. Have faith in that knowledge that you believe in, that we can overcome anything. I can use these tools. I can eat well and healthy. I can plug into uplifting, supportive types of material that is useful for my system. I can share that sense of confidence and that sense of courage. I'm sure with this in mind, you see, our whole system turns upside down. And why isn't anyone dealing with this? Why isn't the government teaching people how to do what I call, literally, it's self-immunization? You are vaccinating yourself with these tools and strategies that have your mind think positively, peacefully, have your body eat healthily, have your relations emotionally connected and sound. Why are we not looking at more of using this as an opportunity to educate our country? Yet every pharmaceutical company is looking to sit there and say, aha, I've got now this wonderful board to spring up into the air and have our profits soar, come out with new products to fill the minds and bodies with all of these different types of medicines. No, we must resist that. We must be a front line at the ISEPP in order to let people know there is another way. You can maintain health, wellness, strong immunity, disease tolerance, if you follow these sensible tools and approaches, using them, sharing them. And this is why CPSD is like never before, because the first thing to do is we need to cut that addiction to the media, because that is what I believe the contributing factor that is keeping everybody's immune system in a lower, weakened level. And we need to change that. And we need to re-educate people and teach them how to look at this as an opportunity, as a great opportunity. Because in crisis is really where we learn our true strength, our stamina, our resiliency. It's not all physical. I find it very enlightening. Some of the recent research they've done with 90-plus-year-olds, following them over an extended period of time. And even when many of them had the proteins that really showed the presence of what we believe to be is causing Alzheimer's and dementia, and they're filled with these proteins, why is it that two individuals, one has no symptoms whatsoever, is living a thorough, happy life, and the other one is suffering, going into Alzheimer's and dementia, and their brains are exactly the same? See, there's something more than just the brains. There's a morphogenetic field of the energy surrounding it. There are all sorts of intergenerational epigenetic tags that could be influencing it. But what they came up with that was totally obvious was they said resiliency. Resiliency. That's an emotional state. And part of that was movement, activity, involvement. Now, these are all part of what I call the key prescriptions that I speak about a lot in my book, Accessing Your Inner Pharmacy. And for many of you out there might be familiar with my work over the last 25 years, where I developed these different protocols that helped children and parents be able to wean off of their ADD, ADHD, and antidepressant drugs, 97% effective, because they then learn what to do and how to enhance their own immune system, to improve their own disease tolerance, learn how to focus, interact, self-manage, and organize. And all of a sudden, don't have any needs for these medications. Why? Because epigenetics reminds us that stress, the signal of stress, is such that that stress signal, whether it's a thought, an emotion, an interaction, an environment, news media coming in, we need to learn how to manage it, to regulate it, so that we feel safe. So we feel connected to the body and to the earth. And the medication solutions just totally disconnect us from the body, and therefore from each other, and therefore from nature itself. The feeling of woodenness, the feeling of numbness, the feeling of detachment that these medical solutions have, well, I'll tell you, they're dangerous. And with the vast amount of people now becoming depressed, unhappy, becoming stressed, causing anxiety, causing all the mental health imbalances, understand taking the medication is the worst solution, because very often you have all of these side effects that are worse than what the original problem was. And now you need to take one other or two other or three other medications to deal with that. And it just atrophies your immune system, your nervous system, your whole body just gets weakened, as well as your mind becomes numbed. You become disconnected. And now you create other problems. Okay, so now you're functioning a little bit, but you lose your sex drive. You lose your drive to have fun. Your funness, your creativity is gone, thrown out the window. Why? Because these medications can be so detrimental. And over 40% of the time, that's what it is. 40%. Wow. Would you go driving your own car if you knew 40% of the time you were going to get into an accident? I certainly wouldn't. Would you let somebody else drive you around and he says, yeah, well, I only have 40% rate of getting into accidents? Sorry. I want someone with 0.0004, not 40. No, they're dangerous. And they don't teach you the skills, the new thinking, feeling, ways of interacting in order to take responsibility to bring yourself back into balance and strength again. And so this is a great opportunity. I just provided you an overview of some of these types of situations, but it's your job, as it is mine, in order to be able to then do it first for ourselves. If you're a therapist, obviously you, and the way that you take care of yourself, the way that you speak, the way that you bring your presence to your clients over Zoom, in person, by telephone, even in text. Do you have a feeling of confidence and safety within you? Because if not, I think you have to consider passing on all clients that are dealing with these issues, because the issues of CPSD goes beyond just depression and anxiety. There's anger, there's sleeping problems, there's relationship problems, there is substance abuse problems. The different types of symptoms that come from CPSD is across the spectrum. And all you need to do to find out if your client is caught in that is assess them. What is their emotional response to what's happening? I remember a client, he came to me and he said, you know, Brian, this has been the best thing that ever happened. I've been able to resort out so many things at home, spend more time with my kids, with my wife. All the traveling back and forth from work, working online has saved me many hours every week. There has been so many benefits here. No, I don't appreciate I can't go out and walk around so much, but that's just a little something. The big picture is we've turned this into a deep meditative and social experience in my family to bring us closer together, to give us an opportunity to clear out closets in the garage. We've done so many projects around the house that we've been saying, oh, I wish I had time one day to get to it. Well, now we get to it. And this person's energy exuded. There was no fear. They had an awareness of the increasing numbers and that number of new cases in the country and in the world was skyrocketing, the number of deaths. And the attitude was, this happens anyway. That's part of the human experience, that illness and disease and death occurs. But even these numbers are reasonable when you compare them to the Spanish flu. So we should consider ourselves fortunate and maybe use this as an opportunity as a world to start working together. And this is important because I want to know, how is it that Japan has done such a great job and the people took this responsibly? In Vietnam, they had a couple of hundred deaths in a country of over 90 million. How did they do that? What type of worldwide agency is coming together? We can't expect the World Health Organization to be in charge of it all. This is something that is beyond their scope. It's too big. Why isn't there some type of United Nations response? And I don't mean the United Nations, uniting nations to come together to find out what works the best and use it. The ego gets in the way, the nationalistic ego. And, oh, we're not like them and they do this and we're better than them and we can't do that. No, no. This is a time we come together. This is our opportunity. What a wonderful opportunity that we have. Now, if you're not a therapist, you still have this responsibility for you. Do it for you. You can't go to your family and say, okay, you need to start eating this and we need to start going for walks and exercising and that. No, you do it. Show them your enhancement of energy, your sense of empowerment, of connection, of feeling good. And let that move others in the direction. They might be in such fear and so overwhelmed in threat that they will pay no attention to you. That's okay, because it's for you first anyway. And if they open their eyes and begin to do something different, great. And if you're in charge of the family and you can make some of the decisions, well, you're the one who goes to the supermarket and buys the food. Start buying foods, some raw fruits and vegetables. Start cooking things that don't have sugar in them and aren't filled with preservatives. Why? Because your microbiome loves it. They go, yay! Bring on that orange juice with the pulp. Don't take the pulp out. Have diversified foods, seasonal foods, fresh foods, because you've got this partner. Feed your partner. And then movement. Feed your emotional state. Do a combination of activity and movement and silence. And connect with nature. Take long walks on the grass with